KD over there.
Young KD. Yeah. So how about you at 2?
For 2, so this one, I'm going with the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah.
And so they got Devin Vassell with the 11th pick. And so he's 6'7", 3-and-D, and some say he's the best wing and guard defender in the draft. So you pair that with his great shooting. He's 6'7", but listen to this. The Spurs GM thinks that by the end of next – they think he's still growing. They think he has the potential to be 6'10".
Jeez, man.
See, like, no, that's a real thing I read. He's supposed to be – there's a chance he could get to 6'10", which is ridiculous for a 3-and-D guy. 6'10", he can play the 1 through 4. He can play the 1 through 4. Great defender. And that's such a great Spurs pick. Just a classic.
I think the Spurs are just one of those teams that's built around defense and kind of built around Popovich's mentality. And they got guys like, I think DeJounte Murray might be the best point guard defender in the league. They have a nice shooting guard in Derek White, who's a defender. They have Aldridge, who buys into their defense, and they have a great defense and 3-point shooter in Devin Vassell. Like, that team is going – that's one of those teams that it might not look the flashiest, but that's a team that you've got on your schedule and you just really don't want to play them because of how pesky and good they're going to be on defense.
Seriously. And a lot of Spurs fans, if you're a Spurs fan tuning in, I know that they're kind of upset. They wanted the Spurs to move into that top 10. They wanted them to try to get one of the big men. They thought they were going to try to go up for a Wiseman because a lot of the top teams didn't want their top picks, like the Timberwolves. And this was the first time that the Spurs have drafted in the lottery in 22 years, I think.
Yeah.
So out of all the NBA teams, the Spurs had the least amount of lottery picks since the lottery was put in. And they really wanted them to get a flashy player with that pick, like a big time name, like, oh, we're going to fix our team in the draft. But I think they just went off in classic Spurs fashion and took Devin Vassell, which is just a solid pick. But the reason why I'm giving them a draft A is who they took in the second round, Trey Jones. And I might be a little biased. I'm a Minnesota boy, but so he fell into the second round. I don't know the exact pick of what he was taking. It was somewhere in the 40s. But you take a second-team All-American point guard who was the ACC Player of the Year and ACC Defensive Player of the Year, and you put him on that roster, that is scary. And
yeah, man. I think he's like we talked about DeJounte Murray earlier. I think he can be just as good as DeJounte Murray. I mean, like, that's just scary. You're adding possibly the best perimeter defender in the draft on your team, and on a Spurs team that's already really good defensively. Like, I don't know. That team's going to be kind of scary next year. I would not want to face them.
And yeah, so like they do have a lot of guards right now, and so Trey he's not going to make a big impact next year, but I've watched this kid grow up. I saw him play I've watched him play 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and then college at Duke. I literally went and watched him in person when he played at Apple Valley. And I say this all the time when someone's like, who's the best basketball player you've ever watched in person? I always will say Trey Jones. So I might have a bias, but I know basketball, and I know that he's a special basketball player.
Yeah, definitely. I think even with Devin Vassell too, I mean, like, the Spurs have a history, obviously, of picking a project guy, kind of, that's a good defender. I think Kawhi Leonard's a perfect example of that. Like, if Devin Vassell is the next Kawhi Leonard, I wouldn't even be surprised because that's just the Spurs.
Clip it right there. Remember that. But
remember that.
A classic Spurs draft, like just the classic Spurs, and what you just gotta love it. Who is your winner of the draft?
So my actually